have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Everyone out there, welcome to Changing Times. This is Wednesday, June the 9th. I can't believe this time is going by so fast. We are live at the Axe Media Group in Springfield, Missouri. And Don, we have a tremendous lineup today. We only have one guest, and he's going to occupy the entire 45 minutes. This is a very fast-paced 45-minute show. And I'm Lynn Morris.
And I'm Dawn Blackard.
And I tell you what, we are on our 10th week. This is extremely exciting things. We started off doing human trafficking. We've gone through autism. We've gone through foster children, child support, and we've gone through drug addiction. We're still continuing that. As today we talk about suicide, we've got a man who understands that and has his own group and mission that we're going to explain. And, it's just a tremendous time. And the changing times, we talk about real issues and real discussions. And Don, how do people get a hold of us to see this 10 o'clock show live? Or if they miss it, what do they do?
They need to go over to the Axe Media Group page and like them so they can follow us every Wednesday at 10. And if they don't see us live, all of these shows are housed there so they can go back and watch on human trafficking or autism. And right now we have a great promotion going on with Axe Media Group that one active follower this week is going to win $100. And so tell your friends, share the post. We have a great message. And like Lynn said, real discussions about real issues. And so people need to hear this. So like and share our page.
What a deal. $100.
I know, $100.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You could even enter, Louie. All you got to do is like and then share.
I've already done the like part. Now I got to share.
So this is awesome. And then one of the things that I want the listeners to know, we really appreciate you tuning in. And one of the things that you can help our show to help your friends and family members, tell them about our show, share this, and let them know that this show is all about them. Everything that we do here is trying to help someone out there, and we know we're reaching a lot of people. So, Don, we were just talking about, where are we reaching people?
We are reaching people in urban areas as far as Chicago, LA, Miami. We're reaching people in France. We're reaching people in Pakistan, over in other places in Europe, and of course, right here in Springfield, Missouri. But we're being seen all over the place.
Well, very good. I tell you what, so obviously just share this 45-minute show. And then we realize not everybody can take off at 10 o'clock in the morning and see this show, but you can see it at 10 o'clock tonight, or you can see it tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see this show, and you can see all the shows that we've done. And it's just a tremendous blessing for someone out there. I know we're going to make a difference today because of Louie Michael. We're going to make a difference in someone's life. And so, good morning, Louie.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
I tell you what, so Louie Michael, you have a corporation called Choosing to Live.
I do, yes.
And so obviously that's kind of around suicide, the subject suicide.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want to talk about today. We shared with you before the show started that we had a young lady last week that's a recovered drug addict that finally, after many, many, many attempts, so many attempts to go clean, that she can't even remember how many times, but it doesn't matter. She kept trying and finally succeeded. And this is what we're going to talk about today, too, about suicide, depression, reason why people do commit suicide or try to commit suicide. A lot of people just try to commit suicide. And sometimes that's just a warning sign. They're really not wanting to commit suicide, but they're trying to send a signal out to somebody. But hopefully some of the people today will see this show and hear this show and start to heed some of the warning signals. Sometimes there's not any. Don, you were just talking about a young couple from Ozark and Joplin that committed suicide over the weekend. And they say there wasn't any signals really. And so sometimes that happens, but we've got to be alert and things like that. So Louie, tell us a little bit about Choosing to Live and why you did that.
Choose to Live. I used to hashtag, or I started hashtagging everything Choose to Live probably 5 or 6 years ago. I had a friend of mine, Minnie McCready, who was a country singer. She had committed suicide. And as I saw and heard of these different people that I knew that would take their life, it hit so close to home because most people didn't know me as a person that was depressed or had anxiety or dealt with any of that stuff. But as early as a child, I remember not wanting to be here, not wanting to live. And it wasn't because I had a terrible home life or anything. It was just something that was in me that I didn't feel like I belonged here. And so all through high school, I dealt with depression horribly. And I was a baseball player. My dad had played professional baseball, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I loved the sport. I loved it. I, adored it. But I also sang a little bit when I could. But in high school, whenever I got hurt, I couldn't finish my baseball career. So that was my world. And at that point in time, and when you're 18 years old and you got all these emotions and hormones and things in life seem so big when really they're not, I went into a severe depression. I quit high school 6 weeks before graduation. Most people don't even know that. All my friends that I went to school with, most of them, I see them today and I say, I quit high school 6 weeks before graduation. They're like, no, we had no idea. I just disappeared. But I had done that as a defense, trying to save my own life because I was so depressed and going through things. And I had attempted to take my life and didn't want to be here anymore. And I came to the realization at that point that that something wasn't right. And so I went several years without getting any help. My parents tried to get me some help and stuff, but even back in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about mental illness and something you're kind of embarrassed about as a young man because you want to be tough and strong and conquer the world and everything. But I got married very early. I met my wife in Chicago. I was an Elvis impersonator for a while back in the early 90s when I could still fit in the jumpsuits. And so I traveled to Chicago and met this young woman that I've been together. Matter of fact, it was 31 years yesterday that we met.
Yeah, congratulations.
So we went and celebrated last night at Doe's and had a big steak, but we had a great time. But
that's a good place.
31 years ago we met. And so that woman changed my life and made me realize that I had something to live for. And it wasn't long after that we had a child. And so I really had something to live for. And I say all that to say this: God was present from the time I was a little kid until the time I became a teenager. He's been present every day of my life. And the older I get, the more I look back and see those times where he saved my life or he put somebody in my life to save my life. And Patty, my wife, has been that person. And she's a nurse and she runs their Nurse on Call for Mercy here. And she's just a fabulous woman. I can't talk about her enough, but she has saved my life over and over. Not to say that as soon as I met her, I wasn't ever depressed again. I still dealt with anxiety and PTSD from a couple of accidents I had. And just life, I think, gives us PTSD sometimes.
Right.
But she was the one who finally coached me probably 15 years ago to go and see somebody and get medicated just to get something. And I take 10 milligram of Lexapro every day.
Right.
I'm not embarrassed to say that. A lot of people don't want to ever talk about what they take, but you got to find a way to help yourself. And prayer is the first thing I start with. But the second thing, you got to go see a doctor. You got to get help. So I say all that to say this: I've been through so many gamuts of the depression, anxiety, mental illness, simply put. I feel like I'm medicated today and I feel a lot better. Not to say that I don't have those dark moments when I wake up one day and I don't want to be here anymore. I still have those. It's part of life. But it's like my good friend Tony Orlando says, you got to find that reason to live every day. You have to find that one thing that keeps you going, whether it be your kids, whether it be God, whether it be, your car or whatever. You have to find that stopping mechanism, whatever's going to keep you from following through with harming yourself. And I'm a big believer that the devil's the one that puts all those thoughts in your head. And he's the one that I combat, on those days that I, wake up and I feel that way. So choosing to live grew out of all of that misery, all that pain, all that happiness, because your happiness is as high as the sky some days and the lows are, 20 feet below. It's just, you got to find that equal medium. So I've had all those. I still suffer from all those things. And my mission's always been just to tell people how I feel, because as an entertainer or somebody that's been out in front of people, they always look at you and they think, well, he doesn't have any problems. He's happy. What's he talking about being depressed? But the more I talked about my own story or told people these things, the more people would come out to me and say, hey, nobody knows this, but I deal with this. And so choosing to live is something that's been on my heart. I've got a website called neversuicide.org. But choose to live, choosing to live, all those things have always been my motto. And that's what I became known for. I was always known by the guy that used to do Elvis. And so I wanted to have something with more meat, and to be able to help people. So that's why I started choosing to live. And I've got an incredible board of directors already set up. And we've got some big plans. And I got to tell you, my big dream of this whole thing is to be able to have, if I could go on TV and have a telethon like Jerry Lewis used to have. Muscular dystrophy was an incredible way. I mean, that telethon was a way for him to get the word out about it. And it educated so many people. Otherwise, people wouldn't have known about it. But man, can you imagine a 2-day telethon with people talking about mental illness and even having entertainers and big stars, some of them that I know that have told me they suffer from mental illness that nobody would ever have a clue about. But man, just to have some sort of telethon or some sort of 24-hour event where there's entertainers and spokesmen talking about mental illness, I would be over the moon if I could accomplish that someday.
Well, you know what, Louie, that's a great idea. So let's just dream and plan and pray that we can make that happen.
Absolutely.
You know so many people. Don and I know a lot of people. We know a lot of people in TV and radio. We can make that happen. I'll tell you what, that would think how many people that might save the lives of and stuff like that.
I agree. I think just people have to know that there's other people that feel the way they do.
Yeah.
And mental illness is one of those things that nobody ever walks up to the cashier at the grocery store when they say, "Hey, how are you today?" And you go, "Well, I'm getting some groceries, but I'm thinking about going home and taking my life, or I'm really down today and I don't know if I can make it." You just don't do that. Human nature doesn't allow you to do that.
Well, Don and I have talked about this. Suicide is one of those things that when it happens, no one ever talks about it. You don't read it in the newspaper. You don't hear about it on the news very much. Now, if you have a car wreck, it's always and you die, you're always going to be on the news. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But people try to suppress and hide the stigma of suicide. And that's not always good because people don't know. There's 800,000 people in the world that commit suicide every day. And I mean, every year. And so really there's some serious things going on, but a lot of people think it's abnormal. I think it's normal the way you feel, because I think that a lot of people feel the way you do. They have ups and downs. Now, a lot of people can cope with it and they never commit suicide or try to commit suicide. But I don't want people to think that they're abnormal out there. I think it's normal. It's okay to feel like you're feeling, but you're right. You've got to seek help. You've got to seek God. You've got to seek a doctor. You've got to, and back when you were talking about it in high school, nobody talked about it back then. No, they stuck their head in the sand. When I first got in state politics in 2012, when I was elected as state representative, the very first year we had, and I don't even remember the number of how many millions, but it was a small number, I believe, to spend on mental health in the state of Missouri. But every year since 2012, we have continued to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more per year on mental illness, mental health. And the reason why in 2012, if you'll remember back, that's when they started having shootings mass shootings at movie theaters.
Yes.
And you'd think that a movie theater would be a safe place to take your family. How about a grocery store? That'd be a safe place to go shopping once a week and get your groceries. How about a school? Wouldn't that be a safe place? But all of a sudden, in 2012 up through 2018, we started seeing mass shootings in places that you would never see it again. And that's when we decided, hey, we've got a serious issue in the state of Missouri. We better start spending money and trying to figure out how to stop that. And I know last year when I was doing my radio show on Fridays that Dr. Mark Stranger, who's the director of mental health for the state of Missouri, very nice man. And he said to me during one of the breaks, we were getting ready to break, and he said, "Are you ready for the mental health tsunami that's going to come to Missouri?" Now, this was because of COVID.
Right.
And I kept thinking tsunami, you always think of those storms where you got 100-foot waves, and it destroys the villages and
Overtakes the
yeah,
land.
yeah. And I was trying to figure out, because we were having a break, and I thought, now I know he's going to ask me something about this tsunami when we get back on the air, and I don't really know where it's happening. And so then when he got back on, thank goodness, he explained it's in Missouri. It's everywhere because everybody's been shut in. They're afraid. All these things are going on, and you need to be with people. Everyone needs to be with people. And I know you're a people person. You probably wouldn't do very well if they shut you in a room.
Not at all.
And
I just talk to the wall if I had to.
So, I mean, see, that's what I mean. So a lot of that stuff's going on. And so how do people get a hold of your organization, or if they want to find out more?
We're in the growth process right now. We're getting everything built. I got my nonprofit last year.
Okay.
My tax lady, she's called the Tax Diva, Dina in Ava, Missouri. She started this for me. She actually did all the paperwork. She was the one that was really pushing me. Said, you keep talking about this. You got to get this done. So let's start from the beginning and get your nonprofit. So she took care of all that for me and got that started. Right now, I've got my board of directors chosen, which is Kim Inman. You may know. She used to be with the Cardinals, and she was the CEO of Missouri Manufacturers. Dr. John Brown with Mercy Hospital. I've got Ashley Watts, who is my daughter. She's a fraud analyst for Expedia. And my other daughter, Grace, who is a photographer and videographer and a website designer and all this other cool stuff. I'm so proud of my girls. I love them.
Yeah, very good.
My wife is on the board as well as a nurse. And I've got, I'm really excited. My first manager I ever had, named Debbie Baker, who also manages Donna Presley, who is Elvis's first cousin. Okay. And if you didn't know, she actually lived at Graceland with Elvis and Grandma and everybody else. So she's a great asset to have. But the Presley connection, too, with suicide, Lisa Marie Presley, who was Elvis's daughter, her son Ben committed suicide last year. And so this is something that's really close to Donna's heart, too, in the family, and they want to help. So I'm really pleased to have those folks. But I've got a website now called neversuicide.org, where you can go on and make donations, and you can also go on and find lots of materials to, read and try to help people get along the way. Our goal is to be able to help fund and support people that need to go get mental help, that maybe can't afford it or don't know where to go. There's a lot of people say, I talk to my doctor, but all they want to do is prescribe something. Yes, that's what doctors do. They go in and try to evaluate. They do the best they can, and they start you off on different things. Sometimes it doesn't work. Both of my girls deal with some mental illness, not as severe, I don't think, as me, but they still deal with it. It's hereditary. And some of those things, you have to find that right chemical mix, whether it be a drug or something, to help you along the way. So I want to be able to help people. We all want to be able to help people get to that next level where they don't wave the white flag, where they don't give up. Because I'm here to tell you, life has so many experiences for you that you don't know what is around the bend tomorrow if you just hang on.
Right.
And my nails are about gone because I've held on for so many years. Yeah. But had I taken my life all the times that I wanted to up to this point, I wouldn't have got to meet all these great entertainers, be a part of people's lives that I've been able to meet. And now I have a whole new purpose. And sometimes it takes going through that valley to get up on the mountain and see things and go, okay, I get it now, God. I know why you put that hurdle in front of me. So yeah, I know you asked me how they can get a hold of me, but that always takes off on a whole nother thing too. You can always call me. You can text me. I get messages actually in the middle of the night. And,
I sent you a message in the middle of the night.
You did. And I answered them.
Yeah, pretty quick. And I think you were out in Vegas then.
I was, but I do. And that's, sometimes I'm like, oh Lord, now's not a good time, but this is what I ask for. This is what I've prayed for. Right. It's like, God, use me as a vessel. I don't need to have all the entertainment. I hung out with billionaires in the Elvis suite last weekend, which was the coolest thing on earth, but it's not as cool as being able to help somebody.
Right.
And, I was impressed with your website. I looked it over, and when you get to the bottom, it's like, there's your phone number. You're making yourself available as far as for people to reach out. And
always. And I think that's what you have to do if you're going to have an organization like this. You have to be reachable, and I answer my phone every chance I get, because I don't want anybody to hurt. Or it may be somebody just saying, hey, and I get executives calling me, and even people that are first responders, and saying, hey, I'm having a rough day and I don't know who to go to. And which is another reason I'm also a chaplain for the Logan Rogersville Fire Department.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because you're a realtor, a successful realtor with friends of mine down in Ozark, Missouri.
Great people, by the way.
They
I
are.
love them.
They are. So, you know, I know from listening to you that many times you really considered suicide. You were depressed enough that you thought about ending your life, but God had another plan for you, and that's what's amazing. And you're living out that plan, and I think that He's using you because you have that knowledge base of what it was like to be down that bottom and to bounce back up. Luckily, you bounced back. You kind of like floated back up out the bottom of the river. And if you hadn't, you could drown.
I'm a crier.
Yeah, and you could drown. And it's kind of like me. A lot of people don't know, but I was coming back from one of my pharmacies one night at Kimberling City. It was in the fall of the year. Missouri State SMS at that time was playing a basketball game. I'd given 2 of my season tickets to 2 doctors in Springfield, and was not driving fast, and was coming from Kimberling City to Springfield, Missouri, to watch a ball game. And when I Spokane, I don't know if you know, on Highway 13, there's a big winding curve, and there's a gas station on the left of this big winding curve.
Sure.
And I hit a semi truck that was stopped on the highway that was turning left to go get fuel up that hill. And I had 13 feet of skid mark.
Oh my gosh.
And I got cut out of the car. Highlandville Rescue, who I've helped monetarily several times, because those guys saved my life. They saved my life because I went into shock. And by the time the ambulance got there, when the highway patrolman got there, he said, he was talking to me. I was not unconscious. And he said, young man, he goes, you were saved. He said, I'm getting ready to retire, 33 years in highway patrol. And I've done many accidents.
Sure.
He said, I've never worked an accident like this, that looking at your car, because it was totaled, he said they didn't have a fatality. So he said, you've been saved. As I laid in the hospital bed for a few days recovering, I kept thinking about, well, why was I saved for? What was I saved for? What should I do? What can I do? And that's when I kind of, for a while, I did the old shotgun approach, where I didn't know what God wanted me to do, but by golly, I wanted to do everything from left to right, right to left, down the middle. I was trying to help everybody.
Because you're a doer.
Yeah. And I thought, well, something that will please God, because He saved me for some reason. And then later on, you started getting some focus of what maybe God wanted you to do. But that's what you're doing. And I'm so thankful that you did mention, that it's through prayer and through God that can save you, to make your life rich again. And now it's rich because you're helping other people. So tell us a little bit about, you just did a fundraiser. You go all over the country, and you were in Las Vegas, and you were doing a fundraiser for a friend that their daughter committed suicide.
Yeah, David and Jackie Siegel, who own the Westgate Resorts, and they owned the Westgate where we played, was the old International Hotel where Elvis used to play and resided. And the event was called Music for Life, for Victoria's Voice. Now, their daughter, about 5 or 6 years ago, overdosed on heroin, and there was no, the Narcan in the ambulance when they got there, and she passed. And so it's been the Siegels' hope and desire to be able to raise funds, and they contribute greatly as well, to make sure that every ambulance, first responder, everybody has Narcan available, to save another life. They had a beautiful girl. She was 18 years old, pretty girl that they had no idea that she was doing any drugs, and until they had the call that night to come pick up her body.
Right.
And so anyway, it was a great event. We raised a lot of money, had Backstreet Boys member AJ McLean, Chris Kirkpatrick of NSYNC, and also Jeff Timmons of 98 Degrees. I think we got a helicopter taking
off. Yeah, it is. Sounds like your helicopter's getting ready to take off.
Right. That must be Mark Burgess.
Without you.
But yeah, it was a great event. It was a star-studded event. We raised lots of money. It's a great thing. And I was able to talk about, I was a little selfish in this regard. I was able to talk to Jackie Siegel about my choosing to live.
Good.
And I hope that they can get on board and help us out. We also teamed up with a production company out of Harrison, Arkansas, that I think are going to help with some events as well. And so it's everything I do. Obviously, I got to go make a living and try to sell real estate so I can pay my bills. But I got into the real estate mostly so I would be able to have the time to devote to this. Obviously, it doesn't take every hour of the day. I don't have a big real estate team or anything other than my family at the office there, Sonia Wells, and the Parnhams and everybody. They've been super to me and helping me out. But my goal was to sell enough real estate so I could pay for this website and do things and try to find the tools to where I could help other people. And most of all, time. As you know, time is hard to come by.
Right.
We don't get it back. And like right now, I feel like I need another 4 or 5 hours in the day to get everything done. And even if I had that, I would probably need more than that. But especially with the phone ringing in the night or whatever. But I just want people to know that, there's 132 people that are going to die today from suicide.
Right.
And it's horrible. And that's just in America.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's in a big city. If you're in a big city, if you're rich, you're poor, it affects everybody. I didn't even realize that farmers are at high risk because they're out there by themselves all the time. They have such huge pressures on them. They're self-employed. But there's groups of people. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is. People are suffering.
Right.
And I often wonder, didn't Missouri and other places have mental institutions or mental facilities more than what they have now?
Yeah, a long time ago, they had places they just kind of locked people up in, but that's not the answer. That's not the answer to do that. But we've got to make sure that people get help when they need it, and just talking to someone listening to you, and then finding out what's the cause. So if it's a chemical imbalance, that they can give you a medication that can help you. I mean, all those things are essential, but we cannot ignore these. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States.
Yep.
The 10th leading cause. And we know a lot of the other causes, the cancer and all this. So think about it. A lot of people die from suicide. And I don't know whether I told Don this or not, but I had a cousin when I was growing up in West Plains that committed suicide in his early 20s. And he left his wife and 2 little children, less than 6 years of age. And they were my cousins. So I saw what the funeral was like that day and how solemn it was. Now, a lot of us hope that when we do die, that we have a celebration of our life.
Right.
But it was just the oddest. And of course, I was just a young guy, but it still impresses me today how that funeral was different than all the other funerals I've gone to.
And that's the thing. When you make that, take that act in your own hands and you take your life, pain is so great. You just want to end the pain. I get that. But people that have to attend your funeral and all the people that are left behind, your coworkers, your neighbors, your family, there's so much collateral damage that you do so much more damage to everybody else. Because everybody always thinks, well, and I've been there, if I exit the scene, if I get out of here, take my own life, they're going to be so much better off. They won't have to worry about me doing this. They won't have to worry about that. And, everything will be fine. But it's the total opposite. You leave such collateral damage behind. It's like a war zone, and people are brutally hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to go on. And that's why those funerals are so solemn. And it's and of course everybody's like, what could I have done? I didn't see any signs. But it's not their fault. They shouldn't be in that position to have to try to figure it out because somebody's taken that act. And the whole suicidal act, I understand it because I've been there. Because any one of us, if we have pain, if we have a headache, we take something for it. We do anything we can to avoid pain. And when that mental pain gets so bad and so great, and then you add alcohol or drugs, anything like that to it, it just compounds the problem, and they just want to exit. And so they commit the act. That's why I don't think people ought to have guns in the house. And if you are suffering from any sort of mental illness, don't be taking the drugs or alcohol, because that makes your inhibitions go away, even more. But they got so much to live for. If you just push forward, don't wave that white flag. Tomorrow's going to be a new day. And those funerals are always solemn. I attended a young man in his home. He was 13 years old recently in Rogersville. It's been a few months back. And I can't tell you what it feels like to hold a mother that is distraught because her son is in the upstairs bedroom laying there dead by his own hand. And it's my mother has been a prayer warrior for me my whole life, and she's the reason I know God. She's the reason I love God. And I know that all her prayers over me have saved my life many times. And I'm not saying that these people don't pray or
Right.
don't have that spiritualness, but it's important. You got to pray for these kids, and you got to get them help when you can. And it's not this mother's fault that this child did this, but the pain that's left behind is just immeasurable.
Well, the Community Partnership of the Ozarks, CPO, right here in Springfield, Missouri, has received 4 grants. There's 7 grants that was given out to the state of Missouri, and 4 grants was in Southwest Missouri. Christian County, where Don and I live, is one of those 4 grants, and unfortunately, we are one of the 7th highest suicide rates in the state of Missouri. So we've got 134 counties, and we're in the top
Number
7.
Wow.
That's terrible.
It is.
And a lot of them, most of them are young children in junior high and high school. And so there is a new organization, and I'm helping to run that down in Ozark. We're meeting at the Nixa Police Department once a month as we organize, but we're gonna try to cut our suicide rate from 21 into 22 by 50%, and 23 by 50% again on what 22 was. We have got to start making a difference in saving lives.
What do you think the most important tools are for you to do that?
Well, one of the things when you said guns is I have guns, and I believe in having guns, and most of my friends
Sure.
have guns. But certainly if you've got small children or even junior high or high school age, the guns need to be locked up. Now, the bullets need to be taken out of the guns and locked someplace else. So, because usually the people I've talked to about with suicide is that if they were going to commit suicide, if it's a hard way to get the gun, by the time they get the gun, they may have changed their mind.
thought process has changed a
But
little bit.
then if they get the gun, but there's no bullets, then they got to figure out where the bullets are. Then they decided not to do it. So you need to deter it. But also we know that guns are security for your house if somebody breaks in or something like that. So that's tricky. But how much time do we have left, Matt? Take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Enter the talent contest at Axe Fest. $10 entry, $50 to winner. Axe Media Group.
Your sandwich was so limited.
Your sandwich had a lot of butter.
We're back at Changing Times. So, Louie, I got a question for you. You have these 2 girls that I can tell you're super proud of, and they're grown. So, as they were growing up, did you talk about mental illness? Did you talk about depression? Did you talk about suicide with your girls?
Probably not enough when they were young because I didn't know where their minds were or what was going on in their lives. I mean, I knew what was going on in their lives, but I think when you hit junior high, you really start getting a sense of what's going on at school. And girls are the most brutal when it comes to bullying at school, which is a whole nother issue too that you could talk about for hours.
Right.
But through their teenage years, unfortunately, they had to see me go through things. And it was a lot of times it was their mother explaining why I was feeling the way I was and probably making excuses for me. But not to say that I was that way all the time, but yes, we did talk to them about it. And we even talk more now today that they're 21 and 29 because I want them, like everybody else, you have to figure out what's wrong. If your heart's beating funny or you got a kidney problem, you got to figure out what's going to fix it. What's going to take care of it? And is it a medication? Maybe. Is it something therapy or something? Maybe. But I'm so proud of them because they want to be a part of this organization as well. And they're also seeking their own help and treatment and making their lives right and understanding. And that's the whole thing is just once I figured out when I wake up every day of what I feel like and my wife is, I give her the credit for this. She's like, this is another one of those days where you feel, you know, it's going to pass, you know, you're going to be okay. But I'm like, you know, I don't feel right. I don't feel good. I'm not happy about this. What do I do? She's like, just chill out. You're going to be okay. But like my girls, I just want them to understand when they wake up every day, it may not be a perfect day. You got to wait it out. It may get better. It may get worse, but tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Well, my son's starting middle school, and Lynn knows he's been basically like an 18-year-old since he was like 5 years old. So he's an only child and just, real advanced as far as communication and wanting to talk about stuff. And, there's 2 thoughts when it comes to kids. It's shelter them from it or take it head on,
The
and
first one is what what's your human nature. You just want to shelter them from everything.
Right.
yeah.
Protect them.
Yeah. And so we've kind of taken the approach of really being open. And, as far as any time with addiction, we really, point that out. We were actually going down Highway 65 and my son saw someone with a glass bowl doing drugs driving down Highway 65 yesterday. And, I think that the schools might have the wrong approach when it comes to talking about mental illness and suicide and drugs. I think we can't talk about it enough. I know sometimes they think we're going to put a spotlight on it and make people, push them over the edge. I don't think they realize the burdens that our kids carry, from the hormones to bullying.
It's not easy being a kid.
No, it's not. And they don't see that like this is such a small part of your life. Like you're going to be beyond high school and beyond middle school, really soon. But I really like, I'm going to go home today and have my son watch this and, talk about what you do. And what do you think about educating early on?
I think it's necessary. I think it's totally necessary. Junior high, high school, great kids might get it a little bit, but really those teenagers, when they're going through all these things, think about it. These are one of the worst weapons people have today, and the bullying that goes on behind this. Mm-hmm. And kids need to know too that bullying doesn't stop when you get out of high school. It happens all through adulthood. There's always somebody there to bully you, whether it be in traffic or somebody you work with. But they have to be educated to know that. And that it's going to be okay. And it's okay to be you. It's okay to be an individual. And those people that are, mocking you or giving you a hard time or whatever, they just, throw them aside. But the mental illness, if you are feeling something that doesn't feel right, talk about it. Tell your parents, tell a counselor. And there are ways in schools that they have found to find out who those kids are. Because a lot of them don't want to talk openly or raise their hand in an assembly. But there's other ways that you can have them fill out a questionnaire or something before the assembly or after the assembly, and then the counselor can go afterwards and visit with them. Mm-hmm. But yes, kids got to be talked to about this stuff because it's something we use throughout our life.
Louie, one of the things I wanted to mention, because it came out of that meeting last week at the Nixa Police Department, I'm amazed because I don't know a lot about social media, but there is a platform that young people dial into or hook up with, and it's actually anonymous. So there are people out there telling kids to kill themselves. They could be kids telling other kids to kill themselves. You're ugly. You're not useful. You're a waste. Just all kinds of negative things that they put anonymously. Anonymously. So that should be against the law. And so a young lady over in Clever in high school tried to kill herself with drug overdose because she was told on this social platform that she was useless. She was worthless. She was no good. Kill yourself. Parents need to pay. Hey, how much time we have? I want Louie to sing one song. You got 2 minutes. Well, I tell you what, Louie, let's sing a song. Sure. This will be a bonus for everybody today. You've got such a tremendous voice, and it's a blessing. So,
well, let's do one of my favorites called "Walk a Mile in My Shoes." So it's kind of fitting.
All right.
Hey, thanks to the sound man over here.
Yeah, this is Matt. Hey.
If I could be you, if you could be me, for just 1 hour, if we could find a way to get inside each other's minds, oh yeah, if you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Oh yeah, walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. Now, if we spend the day throwing stones at one another, cause I don't think I wear my hair same way you do. Well, I may be common people, but I'm your brother. And when you strike out to try to hurt me, it's a hurting you. Lord have mercy, walk a mile in my shoes. We should practice this every day. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. You want to take the last verse?
No, you're doing great.
Now there are people on reservations and out in the ghetto. And brother, there, for the grace of God, go you and I. And if I only had the wings of a little angel, yeah, don't you know I'd fly to the top of the mountain, and then I'd cry, 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 walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. I think the message here is just be good to one another, right?
Right on.
Yeah, we don't know what somebody else is going through, so there's a lot of mental illness out there and everything else. So
Be nice.
Just love on people.
Be nice.
Be nice. Yeah, thank you for having me
Hey,
today.
thank you very much. And
Thank
how do
you,
we
Louie.
close? How do we close?
Be the change.
Thank you. We'll be back
the
next
change.
Friday. Next Wednesday. Sorry, next Wednesday. We'll be back.